Mr. Depp, I'd like to take you back to exactly 6 years prior to this week, the week of May 21st through May 27th, 2016. What happened at the beginning of that week?
May 21st.
Excuse me, May 20th.
May 20th. This is we're talking 2016 here.
Yes.
May 20th, the afternoon of May 20th, afternoon, evening. My mom made her exit. She'd been fighting cancer numerous times and for many years, and she fought all the way to the end. And so my mother passed away on the 20th of May. Which does bring instant perspective into one's mind. I spoke to Amber that night. I called her on the telephone, explained to her that my mom had passed, that Isu had passed, and that I thought that the best thing we could do was to that I file for divorce.
Hearsay. What Mr. Depp told Ms. Heard.
We can move on, Your
Okay.
Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Depp, what happened at the end of that week on May 27th, 2016?
May 27th, my daughter's birthday. May 27th, I was not in Los Angeles. I was on the way to on tour, and that was when Miss Heard went for the restraining order. And oh yeah, also that was the day that Alice Through the Looking Glass, a film I'd done, was opening.
Did Ms. Heard know that you were out of town on May 27th?
Yes.
And how would she have known that?
Well, I told her I was going on tour. I mean, that was well established.
How long were you going to be out of town on that tour?
2 to 3 months.
And did Ms. Heard know how long you'd be out of town?
I don't know if she knew exactly how long I'd be out of town, but it was a pretty extensive tour of Europe.
How did Ms. Heard's actions on May 27th, 2016 affect you?
Changed everything.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance.
Oh, it didn't change
in
everything?
This lawsuit.
Sorry.
Sure, if you could wait till the objection, please.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Relevance.
Tourette's.
Your Honor, this is one of the key
If you want to
dates.
approach.
Mr. Depp, what has it been like for you to listen to Ms. Heard's testimony at this trial?
I'm sorry.
What has it been like for you to listen to Ms. Heard's testimony at this trial?
Objection. Relevance, Your Honor.
Oh, overruled.
Insane. It's insane to hear heinous accusations of violence, sexual violence, that she's attributed to me, that she's accused me of. I don't think anyone enjoys having to split themselves open and tell the truth. But there are times when one just simply has to, because it's gotten out of control. Horrible. Ridiculous, humiliating, ludicrous, painful, savage, unimaginably brutal, cruel, and all false. All false. I wanted no human being is perfect, certainly not. None of us. But I have never in my life committed sexual battery, physical abuse, all these outlandish, outrageous stories of me committing these things and living with it for 6 years and waiting to be able to bring the truth out. So this is not easy for any of us. I know that. But no matter what happens, I did get here, and I did tell the truth, and I have spoken up for what I've been carrying on my back reluctantly for 6 years.
Thank you. No further questions.
All right. Did you want to take lunch at this point, or just, okay, all right, let's do that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take lunch this time. Do not discuss this case with anybody, and don't do any outside research, okay? Thank you. And don't break anything on your way out. Thank you. All right. So just a reminder that since you are back on the stand, do not discuss this case with anybody, to include your attorneys at this point, okay? If you could just have a seat back there. We do have some other issues to take care of. Before we take care of the third-party motion, could I have the attorneys come forward on our...
You testify that you took a train ride from Bangkok to Singapore, is that right?
That's correct.
And you claim that on this train ride that Ms. Heard hit you in the face, correct?
Yes.
And left a black eye, correct?
Yes.
And Michelle, could you please pull up PX 162?
Is that already in evidence?
Yes, Your
Okay.
Honor.
Published to the jury?
Thank you. Mr. Depp, this is the picture that your counsel showed you both in your prior, or showed.
I'm sorry, which number was it?
This is a new exhibit, Your Honor, 1905.
And that's defendants?
Defendant's Exhibit 1905.
Okay, thank you.
Ask for permission to publish, Your Honor.
Or you want to put it in evidence? Okay, any objection to 1905?
With the comments, we have no objection to the photograph itself. We would ask the comments be redacted as hearsay.
Well, I'd like to at least question the witness about the
I have no
comments.
objection to the photograph being published.
Okay, well, then let's wait a minute. Mr. Depp, you see here, these are 4 pictures of you, right?
Yes,
Yeah, and below it indicate that they were taken on July 24th, 2015 in Bangkok, Thailand, correct?
Objection, lack of foundation, calls for speculation.
Overruled.
in Bangkok, Thailand, so before the train ride.
Correct, before the train ride, because you didn't get on the train ride till the 25th, is that right?
Somewhere in that area, I guess.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd ask for permission to publish this to the jury.
All right,
If it's just the photographs, we have no
all
objection.
right, if you want to redact the, just have the photographs in it?
Sure. We'll do 1905.
5, just with redaction, sure it'll be fine. I think there's still some on the bottom. I'm not sure.
It's just redact the, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right, publish.
Thank you, Your Honor. Michelle, could you please scroll down to the bottom 2 pictures there? Mr. Depp, in these pictures that were taken before you got on the train ride for your honeymoon, where you claim that Miss Heard hit you and gave you a black eye, you have the exact same shadow or sunburn or mark under your left eye. The exact same mark, don't you?
That's the, when you get a side light, you see the occipital bone. So that is the exact area.
Yep. And it's actually...
A side light will cause that.
Yeah, well,
as
the
well.
picture's not being taken from the side, is it? It's being taken
No,
head
no,
on,
no, no,
isn't it?
no. The lens in front,
Yeah,
the light on the side,
right.
will cause that occipital bone, I believe it's called, to appear sunken. And-
Just like lights on the side of a train car, correct?
Objection
Well,
calls for speculation.
You can take that down, Michelle.
that was in fact in the dark.
Sus-
And I had a
sustain-
chef, I had people on either side of me, so
you could
I
wait for
don't
next-
see where the light fill is from the side there.
Mr. Depp, if you could wait for the next question, next question.
Next
was
question.
sorry.
Even the picture your team chose to show you on that train isn't accurate, is it? Let's pull up
Objection
exhibit-
calls for speculation.
Let's pull up Exhibit 1859, please.
1859, is that in evidence? or-
No, Your Honor.
1859.
Mr. Depp, this is the same picture, or the exact same scene displayed in PX 162 that you looked at this morning, correct?
That looks like my face has been, the eyes have been photoshopped.
Oh, okay. So this post from the Eastern and Oriental Express's Facebook page, you're saying that that's photoshopped?
Is that from their page? I would, sure, why wouldn't they?
Let's pull them up side by side, please. Your Honor, I'd move for the admission of this exhibit. We can just have the pictures. We don't need the...
Any objection to the picture?
Objection, lack of foundation, lack of authentication.
Is that you in the photo, Mr. Depp?
It is me, but it's clearly...
Your Honor, I'd move to strike
been-
anything after that, first of all, and would ask for admission of this photograph.
All right, just the photograph?
Yep.
You're gonna,
We maintain our lack of authentication, lack of foundation.
all right, over objection, I'll allow 1859 in evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor. Michelle, could I please get you to...
You need to redact it first.
We actually have one that will admit, or ask to be admitted as 1858. That is just the picture.
I already have 1859.
Okay, so we'll call this 1859 then.
So this is 1859.
Yeah, we just need to,
Okay.
we'll fix that exhibit sticker on the bottom and get you that correct 1859.
1859.
And Michelle, what I'd like to ask you to do, please, is to put the picture displayed as 1859, just was admitted into evidence, next to PX 162 that was shown to Mr. Depp this morning.
Okay. You can pop, those are both in evidence.
Okay, can you try to make them the same size, please? This is the exact same picture, isn't it, Mr. Depp?
With radically different quality. And
No, you answered my question.
how
Permission
do
to
you know I
publish.
wasn't done?
You answered my question, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Mr. Depp, you had that, whatever mark it is, whether it's a sunburn, whether it's a shadow, whether it's the light reflecting, you had that same mark on your eye before you got on that train.
Well, it's pretty difficult to get a sunburn on a train. And in the
let's go to-
photographs with the child, I don't look particularly sunburned. Can we see those again?
Let's pull up exhibit one. Actually, no, let's talk about Australia for a little bit.
Oh, good.
You testified that you've never done ecstasy more than...
Has no bearing on this case and is thus not germane to this litigation. Therefore, I'll deny the non-party HM Productions motion to intervene.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank
For
you.
the record, I've known Mr. Tobin for several years. I meant no snarkiness toward him.
Well, you're just a snarky guy. Yeah, Ashley, Mr.
Your Honor, I am concerned that we preserve the issue fully, and so...
For the record, yes,
For the
sir.
record. And so I would ask, may I have the opportunity to object when Mr. Tremaine is questioned by question?
No, sir, you're not a party to this case. However, I will note for your record your objection to his complete testimony.
And Whitey's stuff is cocaine,
I would say.
and the e-business is ecstasy. You already
Yeah,
testified.
quite likely, yes.
Okay.
So I
take that.
didn't recall that.
Thank you.
But,
Can you pull up exhibit 1817, please? This is a picture that you were shown this morning, Mr. Depp,
yes, sir.
and you kind of made some illustrations on the picture and gave your account of what you see here. Mr. Depp, you testified previously that the vodka bottle that you allege cut off your finger was a handle of vodka, correct?
Yes.
You've already testified
The
to that,
second
correct?
bottle, there was a handle on that bottle,
Right.
yes.
This bottle, whatever it is, to the extent it's glass at all, that's in the corner of this room, that's not a handle of vodka.
Objection calls for speculation.
I think you'll find that I said two bottles.
Well, actually, what you testified to this morning, Mr. Depp, was that the bottle in the corner was the handle, and there is no other bottle in the picture, is there?
No, that's not what I testified. I testified that, may I touch the screen?
Yes.
This is glass. This is glass.
Yep. And that's not a handle. Neither of those are handles of vodka.
It's that big, it's broken. The handles up the top on those vodka bottles, sir.
Yeah.
I mean,
And none, if you combine all that glass on the floor, that doesn't make up the amount of glass in a handle of vodka, does it?
Objection calls for speculation.
I'm not a,
When there's objection, hold on. I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
There is no picture of a handle of vodka broken on that floor, is there, Mr. Depp?
no, I don't see it. I see glass under this chair here.
Okay. Well, you testified this morning that you did see it, so it's good to get that clarification. Let's move
No, I
on.
didn't say I saw a handle.
You also testified this morning that yeah, and I want to get this. I want to make sure that we're on the same page here. You
I don't think we
testified
will.
earlier this morning that there was no phone in the bar area downstairs. Is that what you testified to?
I don't recall a phone in the bar area.
Okay.
I don't recall a Bakelite phone in the bar area where I.
Okay.
No.
Let's pull up Michelle, please. The UK day 3, page 421. Mr. Depp, we've done this drill before. This is your testimony from the UK, correct?
Can I please have?
It's this. We don't have copies for everyone. It's on the screen.
Your
right
Honor,
there.
may I please? I would like to have what he's the testimony of the
Here,
witness.
you can have my copy.
Thank you.
Mr. Depp, you remember giving testimony in the UK trial for several days, correct?
Okay, so okay here.
Yep.
So I
And-
do remember a telephone in the bar area, and this
Yeah, well,
telephone you picked up was made of Bakelite.
this is my turn to do this, Mr. Depp.
I'm sorry.
On page 421, line 19, you were asked a question, and this telephone that you picked up was made of, I'm sorry, I'm going to go up line 15. Question, at one stage when you were in the kitchen screaming at Miss Heard, you picked up a wall-mounted telephone. Do you remember a telephone in the kitchen? Answer, no ma'am, I remember a telephone in the bar area. Question, and this telephone that you picked up was made of Bakelite. Do you know what I mean by that? A retro telephone, wall-mounted but retro. Answer, it was a wall-mounted telephone, but it was not Bakelite. It was a modern phone. It was plastic. Question, a phone that was a wall-mounted phone that was picked up, can you scroll down please? Question, a phone that was a wall-mounted phone that was picked up by you, held in your right hand, and you were repeatedly smashing it against the wall in your right hand. Answer, that is possible. But I do not, if that is the case, I do not believe I spent very much time on the phone. I remember ripping the phone off the wall. That was your testimony, correct?
It seems it would be yes.
Thank you.
I
Answer my question. Thank you. Mr. Depp, you've claimed before, you've said, if I'm angry and I've got to lash out or hit somebody, I'm going to do it. And I don't care what the repercussions are. Anger doesn't pay rent. It's got to go. It's got to be evicted. You've said that before, haven't you?
have you a quote from me somewhere saying that?
It's my question to you. You've said that before, haven't you? Well, actually, let's refresh your recollection. Can you pull up
Be glad.
the Ghost in the Machine article, please?
Possibly about paparazzis.
Mr. Depp, you see the picture of you on the lower left. You appears to be shirtless and wearing a crown, I believe. You see the long paragraph above that that starts with "in the Mark Hotel"?
Ah, yes,
You
yes.
see that?
Yes, I
At
do.
the bottom of that, does this refresh your recollection that you said, "I have a lot of love inside me and a lot of anger inside me as well. If I love somebody, then I'm going to love them. If I'm angry and I've got to lash out or hit somebody, I'm going to do it, and I don't care what the repercussions are. Anger doesn't pay rent. It's got to go. It's got to be evicted. Did I read that right?
You did read that right, yes.
Thank you. You can take that down, Michelle, please. Now, Mr. Depp, you've also claimed that you've said before that if you want to be with a woman sexually, that she is rightfully yours, haven't you?
Could you repeat that?
And you've also said that with
Could you
respect-
repeat that, please?
Yeah, that if you want to be with a woman sexually, that she is rightfully yours.
That's ludicrous.
You've also said that with respect to women that you want to be with, you've remarked, I need, I want, I take, haven't you?
Equally as ludicrous, no.
Can you pull up DX 883, please?
You can pull it what you like. I've never saw those words. There's not enough hubris in me to say anything like that.
883?
883, Your Honor.
It's not-
DX
is it
It is not admitted yet.
Okay, 883.
Mr. Depp, these are text messages from you to Stephen Deuters on February 22nd, 2017, correct?
This looks nothing like me. You might have mistaken.
Mr. Depp, we can show the full unredacted. You've looked at a number of text messages in this case, and the words him as the identifier, that's you, correct? In every text message we've seen in this case.
Yeah, sure. It still doesn't mean it hasn't been screwed with. That's not anything that I've ever said or written.
You want to see the whole thing unredacted? We can look at that too.
No, because you could have typed it up last night. No.
Yeah. I can assure you I didn't type it up last night, Mr. Depp. Your Honor, I'd move for the admission of Exhibit 883.
All right, any objection?
Objection on relevance grounds, Your Honor.
All right, well, do you want to approach for a moment? Let's take a look. All right, 883 in evidence as redacted.
Thank you. Mr. Depp, you're aware that these are text messages. You can see the bottom right where it says Depp and then it has a number, 8129. Those are produced by you in this litigation. You understand that, right?
I understand that, sir.
Okay. All right, Michelle, could you please, let's take a look at the top text first. Mr. Depp, on February 22nd, 2017, you texted Mr. Deuters, right, exactly. Molly's pussy is rightfully mine. Should I not just bust in and remove its hinges tonight? Did I read that right?
You read it right.
And the
yes.
one beneath that, you say, I want to change her understanding of what it is like to be thrashed about like a pleading mackerel. And then in all caps you write, I need, I want, I take. Is that right?
You read it right. But I did not write that.
Okay.
Perhaps someone else.
You wrote
had
every
my
other
phone.
text that you produced that came from you in this litigation, didn't you?
Not necessarily. Sometimes you give your phone to people and they
Now,
text
when you
from
got
it.
off that plane
Excuse me?
from Boston,
Sorry?
when you got off the plane from Boston, you knew Miss Heard was angry with you, didn't you?
It was pretty much a given.
Objection, calls for speculation.
And you understood her to be angry, right?
She was always angry, yes.
And you asked Mr. Deuters Same person, you can take this down, Michelle, please, thank you. Same person that you texted in that last exhibit, you asked Mr. Deuters to communicate with her on your behalf, correct?
I don't know what you're talking about. You'll have to explain.
You asked Mr. Deuters to communicate with Ms. Heard by text to speak to her about the incident, correct?
About what incident?
To speak to her about the plane flight,
The plane?
the Boston plane.
The Boston plane.
Yeah.
So you're saying that I influenced Mr. Deuters. I told him that he had to write this, and I had told him that he had to write that. Is that what you're saying?
No. It wasn't uncommon for Mr. Deuters to text to communicate with Ms. Heard on your behalf, correct?
Objection calls for speculation.
He was your personal assistant. Mr. Deuters was your personal assistant, correct?
I had two personal assistants
Right.
at the time.
He was one of them, right?
Yeah, Mr. Deuters was one of them, yes, sir.
Right, and it wasn't uncommon for you to ask Mr. Deuters to communicate with Ms. Heard on your behalf, correct?
It wasn't uncommon for any of them to communicate with Ms. Heard on my behalf if I were on set or unavailable or any of that.
Or if Ms. Heard and you had a fight, you would sometimes have them communicate with Ms. Heard on your behalf, correct?
I think my crew caught on very quickly that
Just a yes or no,
would be
Mr. Depp.
necessary for them to.
No, just a yes or no. It was not uncommon after
Objection,
you and Ms.
Your
Heard
Honor.
had
I'd ask that he be allowed to finish his answer.
yes or no question, Your Honor.
All right. Go ahead and ask your question again.
Thank you, Your Honor. It wasn't uncommon for you to have one of your personal assistants communicate with Ms. Heard after you and her had a fight.
I disagree because you're insinuating that I had them do it, and you don't know that.
After the Boston plane flight, you had Mr. Deuters communicate with Ms. Heard, correct?
When I'm asked what to do, I said placate or just play a shiner there.
Thank you. We can take this down. Mr. Depp, do you recall Ms. Heard testifying that she punched you in the staircase incident because she thought of Kate Moss in the stairs?
Do I remember her saying that?
Yes.
Yes, I do. 3 times. Yes, I do.
Do you have any understanding as to what Ms. Heard was referring to?
Yes, I do.
And
As Kate Moss, Kate testified, it was many, many years ago. And exactly what happened is what she said happened. I recall speaking with Ms. Heard about that very incident because of the downpouring of rain, because it was raining very heavily that day that Kate slipped. And I recalled the story to her.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
may we approach Your Honor?
Okay.
Please continue, Mr. Depp. What did you tell Ms. Heard about the staircase, or Kate Moss?
I'll make it easy for Mr. Rottenborn. Ms. Heard took the story and turned it into a very ugly incident, all in her mind. there was never a moment where I pushed Kate down any set of stairs. Yet she's spewed this 3 times before.
Objection, Your Honor. Ms. Heard simply testified that she had heard a rumor, and that's
What's a
not
rumor?
responsive to the question.
Sir, hold on. This
Sorry.
objection. I'll overrule the objection.
Misstates the facts and evidence.
I'll overrule the objection.
Sorry, I was drawn by Mr. Rottenborn's voice.
Certainly.
What would you like? What was it?
So what specifically had you actually told Ms. Heard about the incident with Miss Moss and the stairs?
Very simply that we were in Jamaica. I had left our bungalow about 3 minutes prior to her. I was standing outside, and suddenly rain starts just coming down like it's, monsoon. And then I remember looking and seeing Kate coming out the door, and there were 3 little wooden stairs, and she slipped, her legs went up, and she landed directly on her coccyx and her lower back. So, and she was obviously physically in pain, and she was hurt, she was crying. So I ran over and grabbed her to make sure she was all right. That's it. That's all I ever. That's the whole story. But then the rumor of it, I'd never heard a rumor of that before Miss Heard grabbed hold of it. It's like that. Sorry.
Mr. Depp, we heard testimony from Miss Heard's sister, Whitney, during this trial. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And how would you describe your relationship with Whitney when you were in a relationship with Miss Heard?
I liked Whitney very much. Initially, when I first met her, I liked her very much.
Forensic psychologist, and I'm here today to rebut the testimony that was provided by Dr. Hughes.
Which of the opinions rendered by Dr. Hughes do you intend to rebut?
So generally speaking, there are 3 main categories that I'd like to talk about today. So the first is that Dr. Hughes misrepresented the tests and the results that she utilized in her evaluation. She misrepresented my testing and the results that I obtained in my evaluation. And she communicated in a manner, provided testimony in a manner that presented essentially her own opinions and the self-report of Ms. Heard as facts.
Okay, the first category you talked about was the misrepresentation of her own test methods and results. What do you mean by that?
So Dr. Hughes she stated that she administered 12 tests. In actuality, she used 8 checklists. About half of those were symptom checklists. The other half were checklists about experiences that people can have with domestic violence. And those are not appropriate for forensic settings. They are easily exploited.
Other issues that you intend to address relative to misrepresentation of own results?
Yes, so in addition to using these checklist measures, which are easily exploited in a forensic context, they're developed for research or treatment only. She also stated that these checklists revealed things that they simply cannot reveal, especially in this context. Let's see. She also misrepresented information, clear indications on several of the objective measures that she offered. And there were indications visible that Ms. Heard had essentially engaged in what we call response distortion. So clear indications of exaggeration on one of the measures that's specific to PTSD, clear minimization of symptoms, intentional, on another more broad personality and psychopathology-based measure that she gave to Ms. Heard, which she did not acknowledge.
Did you intend to address anything relative to the CAPS-5?
I did. So Dr. Hughes administered the CAPS-5 about 10 days after I did, almost 2 years after she initially tested Ms. Heard, and she did not administer the test appropriately. So she left major components blank. She didn't apply the scoring rules that are clearly outlined with the test, and yet she diagnosed Ms. Heard with PTSD based on that assessment.
What about Dr. Hughes's use of the personality assessment inventory?
So of the tests that Dr. Hughes administered, 2 would be considered, of those 12, 2 would be considered what we call forensically relevant instruments, meaning that they're objective enough and they provide us with some information about how the examinee approached the test, that it would be appropriate for this setting where the examinee is going to have a natural incentive to present themselves in a way that benefits the outcome of their case. Now, on the PAI, there were clear indications that Ms. Heard was responding and obtained scores in a manner that's consistent with individuals who have a personality disorder. And there was also an indication that several scales, we call this a configuration. So you might have one main scale that you notice is elevated, then you look for additional subscale information to get additional information on what could be elevating that scale. And there was a configuration that showed that even though Ms. Heard had moderately elevated one of the scales that can be associated with trauma, that elevation is better explained by childhood or distant traumatic experiences like the complex trauma Ms. Heard reported experiencing growing up.
Okay. You said that Dr. Hughes utilized checklists that are not appropriate for forensic analysis. Can you
Yes.
explain that?
Yes, so as I said, in any sort of forensic context, whether it's a civil or a criminal matter, a person who's being evaluated is going to have major incentive to present in a way that benefits the outcome of their case. So you always approach the examination, I believe Dr. Hughes said, with a healthy dose of skepticism, but that alone is not enough. We have to operationalize that. So we actually have to administer very comprehensive objective tests that either control for attempts to manipulate the test results or reveal attempts to manipulate the test results, so that we're not just blindly accepting the results or the self-report of the examinee.
How many tests were administered by Dr. Hughes?
She said that she administered 12 tests.
How many of them were appropriate for forensic physical examination?
So the trauma symptom inventory is appropriate. It's an objective measure, and it does have 2 primary scales that look at how the person approached the test. The personality assessment inventory is an excellent test. It is a broadband measure, meaning that it captures not only symptoms of mental illness, but also general personality traits. That also gives us pretty detailed scales similar to that one test I administered, the MMPI, that tell us a lot of nuanced information about the way the person approached the test. She also administered a malingering screen that can be very, very useful, but not in this context. So it's called the Miller Forensic Assessment Symptom Test. It's a brief set of questions that you ask the examinee, and it's been shown by research to be extremely effective at identifying an examinee's attempts to fake a severe mental illness or psychosis. And psychosis is when somebody loses complete connection with reality. It's excellent for that purpose. It's actually been shown in the research to not be effective at all for identifying a respondent's attempts to fake PTSD, anxiety, or mood disorders. The questions are just too odd for somebody who has the wherewithal to be trying to have PTSD to endorse. They see through it. So she used that. That's a fine test, but not appropriate for this context.
Of the various tests that she administered, how many were these checklists?
8 of them.
All right, and What are you talking about specifically?
Okay. So I had mentioned that there were two main categories of checklists she used. The first is the symptom checklists. Those included the Beck Depression Inventory. It's a brief inventory of items that essentially show all of the symptoms of depression that a person might have, and you rate which level of severity you have for each question. She also gave the Beck Anxiety Inventory, very similar, but just with questions about anxiety. She gave the Mood Disorder Questionnaire, which is a very brief, again, checklist. It shows symptoms of bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder is a mood disorder where you might have an extended manic episode and then a very extended depressive episode. And then she gave the Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder Checklist, and that is a screening instrument only. It contains every single symptom of PTSD. So there's a secondary danger here too. When you think about it, given that PTSD is the most frequently feigned and claimed diagnosis in civil courts, if you're handing somebody a checklist that lists every single symptom of PTSD, you're essentially teaching them all the little nuances that we're looking for to give that diagnosis. So she gave that to Ms. Hurd. Ms. Hurd endorsed most of the items, and Dr. Hughes diagnosed her with PTSD and substantiated that opinion by Ms. Hurd's checking those items on the PCL-5.
Were there another group of checklists that Dr. Hughes used?
Yes, so she also, and I forgot one on the last because I don't think of it as one, but previously I'd explained, and I do not expect you to remember, it's called the Life Events Checklist, which is just an inventory of experiences a person may have gone through that are traumatic. Dr. Hughes also used that, and that's appropriate to use before the clinician-administered PTSD scale, the gold standard, CAPS-5. However, she administered this long ago before she gave the CAPS-5. Now that going on to the second group, there were 3 checklists that she gave that are specific to abuse. And the first she gave, the Danger Assessment Scale, was actually developed for use by nursing staff in an emergency room setting, specifically for female victims of intimate partner violence. The purpose of this is important because our forensic ethics, our psychology ethics, talk a lot about relevance. Is the test relevant to the purpose? And the Danger Assessment Scale, its initial purpose was completely different. This was developed to show high risk factors for dangerousness and pretty much to help a female who is in an extremely abusive partnership, who is in the emergency room with extreme injuries, to stop rationalizing, because if she has to check off all the things that have happened that year that have been dangerous, does he own a gun, has he, I won't go into all of them, but the more she checks off, the more likely it is that she might realize that she is in imminent danger and then accept resources offered by the hospital and social work to protect her. That was the purpose of this scale. It was never intended to be used as a retrospective measure to look back in time and find out whether abuse was occurring based on one person's report years later in a litigation. She also gave the Conflict Tactics Scale, revised, the second edition. Similarly, this scale was developed for research purposes, to research family violence. Again, there is no control for exaggeration or minimizing. It was just given to research participants anonymously so that we could get data on the prevalence of abuse and how abusive dynamics work. And on that, there's 39 questions where the respondent indicates essentially certain abusive behaviors they may have engaged in, and then 39 where they indicate behaviors their partner might have engaged in. And obviously, you can understand that in a forensic setting, the respondent is likely to put a very minimal amount of behaviors they engaged in, and then extremely increase the number of behaviors their partner might have. And then lastly, let's see, the abusive behaviors observation checklist was the third checklist she gave. This one has not, there's no known research even on its effectiveness for what it was developed. It's a theoretical, very brief checklist that was meant to be used for therapy where an individual who had experienced domestic violence could essentially read through some of the behaviors that constitute violence that they might not have been aware of. And if those behaviors applied to them, or if some of those coping strategies were ones they utilized, they would check that off, and then they have a way to talk about it because now it's been put to words. Again, this is similarly problematic if you're in a civil litigation, the person's motivated to have their results be consistent with a claim or an allegation of intimate partner violence and an allegation that they've been severely harmed, then they could simply just check off more. And not only that, but checklists like this one specifically give a lot of nuanced information about what clinicians might be looking for when they're assessing whether violence was present or whether the person's self-report is consistent with a genuine self-report of having been victimized. They're given all that information that we might be looking for.
Can you talk specifically about Dr. Hughes's use of the, I think you called it the PCL-5?
Yes. So the PCL-5 is the post-traumatic stress disorder checklist. This is different, not to be confused with the CAPS-5, which I've talked about previously as being the gold standard. The PCL-5 was developed by the National Center of PTSD. It's intended for treatment. So if I were, for instance, working with a service member who I know had been in combat, I would probably give this as a standard with my intake. Before we do the diagnostic interview, it kind of gives me a read on how somebody who's there for treatment, who we assume can be taken at their word because if they give us correct information, they're going to get an appropriate treatment. And if they give us incorrect, they might not get the treatment they need. So I would give this checklist to them, and then if they recognize some of those symptoms of PTSD, they could check it off. And that would probably indicate to me that I need to then do the next step. If they're checking off more items than not, I would probably decide to administer the clinician-administered PTSD scale, that gold standard interview, to find out more about a diagnosis.
The last thing is what everybody refers to as the CAPS-5?
Yes, the CAPS-5.
All right. What about, well, you talked about forensic use. What do you mean by that?
So when I'm talking about forensic evaluation, that's an evaluation that isn't done for therapy or treatment. It's specifically to assist the fact finder, to assist the judge or the jury in the court by providing information about the psychological status about an individual. And that's an important delineation too. We are not psychologists. I wish we were mind readers. I wish we had a crystal ball and could find out whether intimate partner violence occurred and look back in the past. But it's nothing like that. Really, it's a lot less interesting. We look at data. We have to control for those response biases. And then we also are looking at functioning, which is really the bottom line of the assessment. Did the person have a change in functioning from before the alleged trauma, or in this case, the alleged IPV, to after? Is there a decline in the way they're going about their lives?
Objection, Your Honor, may we approach?
All right.
I'm trying to understand. So just based on the fact that 7 years ago, they happened to know that you were working that night.
9 years ago, and it's because I was there
Okay.
with them.
My math, well, it's 2022 right now, and that was what year? Oh, that was
2013.
You're right. Okay. So how is it that out of the blue they remember?
So,
You know there were multiple posters for the Aquaman movie.
yes,
And that
there always
three-
are. That's standard.
And that 3 out of the 4 posters, the standard posters for Aquaman, didn't even feature Miss Heard.
Right. So when you make a poster at the studio, it's normal to have 3 or 4 variations because you want to appeal to different people's perspective. So you want the romantic poster, you want the action poster, you want the superhero poster. So it's normal for them to have many posters, but the romantic poster was of Ms. Heard and Mr. Momoa.
Right, and everyone, and all the others are just of Mr. Momoa.
Like we talked about, it's Aquaman, but she was prominent in the ones that that Warner Brothers wanted to appeal to women and to the romantic interest of the consumer.
Yeah. Mr. Knight, you are a pretty big fan of Johnny Depp, aren't you?
I am not. To be honest, throughout the evening,
Sorry, I just asked you one question.
Oh, I
didn't ask
apologize.
you the rest of that.
I
You wanted
apologize.
to participate in this trial, didn't you?
I did not. I
You
was
knew-
asked by the attorney, and I wanted to. They asked me, and I said I'll be happy to come and tell the truth.
You knew this was on camera, that it was being broadcast to a lot of people, and you saw testimony, did you not, in this case? And you seized the moment and responded to the umbrella guy, the lead person for Mr. Depp's Twitters. Did you not?
Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative compound.
Overruled.
Mr. Umbrella Guy is the lead. The lead.
You
what?
know that he leads one of the most predominant pro-Depp Twitters out there.
I have no idea. I don't care or follow the Umbrella Guy.
In fact, you do follow a Twitter called Johnny Depp Fan, don't you?
Absolutely not.
You don't? That's your testimony
No.
under oath?
It is my testimony under oath.
All right.
Attention, I believe that was the one that we can look at as a marker for her, sure.
Did you watch Blade Runner 2049?
I did.
Do you know what she did in the movie?
It was years ago. I don't remember exactly what she was in, what role she played, but she was in that movie, and from that, her agents used that as leverage to get her more movies.
You have no knowledge that her principal role in that movie was as a gigantic naked billboard?
Are you saying that's the only thing she was? She was a gigantic naked billboard. She wasn't in the
That's the
movie.
principal role in that movie.
I don't remember the movie well enough to know.
Okay.
Afternoon, your time. My name is Ben Chu from the firm of Brown Rudnick. Would you please state your full name for the record?
Kate Moss,
Ms. Moss, where do you reside?
London, England.
From where are you testifying today, Ms. Moss?
Gloucestershire, England.
Ms. Moss, do you know Johnny Depp?
Yes, I do.
How do you know Mr. Depp?
I had a relationship with him.
Did there come a time when you and Mr. Depp had a romantic relationship?
Yes.
For how long, Ms. Moss, were you and Mr. Depp a romantic couple?
From 1993 to 1994 to 1998.
Ms. Moss, did there come a time when you, while you and Mr. Depp were a couple, that the two of you took a vacation together to the Golden Eye Resort in Jamaica?
Yes.
What, if anything, happened when you were in Jamaica with Mr. Depp?
We were leaving the room, and Johnny left the room before I did, and there had been a rainstorm, and as I left the room, I slid down the stairs, and I hurt my back.
How did you...
And
I apologize, Ms. Moss. Please continue.
And I screamed because I was because I didn't know what had happened to me, and I was in pain, and he came running back to help me and carried me to my room and got me medical attention.
Did Mr. Depp push you in any way down the stairs?
No.
During the course of your relationship, did he ever push you down any stairs?
No, he never pushed me, kicked me, or threw me down any stairs.
Ms. Moss, have you ever before today testified in any kind of court proceeding?
No, I have never.
Why did you decide to testify today?
Objection, Your Honor.
All right.
That's beyond the scope of what we just talked about.
All right, I'll sustain the objection.
Thank you, Ms. Moss. We have nothing further at this time. We greatly appreciate your taking the time to testify.
All right, any cross-examination?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you're free to go. Thank you, Ms. Moss.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, your next witness.
Is consistent. The third point is that it's all about games. They didn't sue Mr. Waldman on the three statements. They didn't try to fill the hole. They've been telling us for a week that they're going to call Mr. Depp to try to fill the hole in their counterclaims. They didn't do that. And it's very consistent with the game playing. Let's go into court after the police have found no problem and after witness who had no relationship with each other said there are no visible marks. Let's not give Mr. Depp's lawyer the required 24-hour notice before the TRO. Let's march into court with our publicist, with our lawyer, with our best friend who no longer talks to her. Let's get a TRO. And when the Me Too folks say, why are you taking $7 million from an abuser? They said, I didn't take money from the abuser. I gave it all to charity. Well, they didn't. I don't think anybody should feel bad about them stiffing the ACLU, given what the ACLU did in this case, which is a monstrosity. But she did stiff the sick and dying children. It is gamesmanship, and that's what she's doing here today. But the law is the law, and they have not fulfilled their burden with respect to the counterclaims. There is virtually no nexus between Mr. Depp and Mr. Waldman as to these statements at issue, except for the fact that he is an attorney, and that is not sufficient in a case where they have not even established that Mr. Depp was aware of these statements. And they knew that they couldn't do it, and they didn't even try. And it's more of the gamesmanship when Ms. Heard plays word games with Mr. Depp about, oh, I didn't punch you, Johnny, I just hit you. Imagine if the shoe were on the other foot and Mr. Depp, a man, was saying to a woman, oh, woman up, I only hit you, I didn't punch you. And when it was chilling, when she warned him on the tape, you go tell a judge, you go tell a jury that you, a man, were abused. See if they're going to believe that. It is an abuse of the system, and she's done it throughout. Finally, Your Honor, and Mr. Rottenborn makes an excellent point.